So Rapper Nelly had a hot take on the podcast this week that got a lot of people to talking. And he was doing Drink Champs, a podcast with another rapper named Noriega. And they were asking him about like his life with dating Ashanti and his kids and how he handles his kids being a little older now. And he started to speak about how he has a bit of a different approach when it comes to how he allows his daughters to come home in a time of crisis and how he allows his sons to come home in a time of crisis. And he's standing on business in the fact that he feels like as a father, it should be a bit different.
I told my daughter, yeah, baby, don't worry about it. You can always come home. You always got a room. My son, he can come home, but he get the couch. Eventually, he got to get the out. He got to. He a man. You got to go. You can always come home, and sometimes it may not work out. I ain't knocking that because you got to get back up on your feet. You know what I'm saying? But just know this is temporary.
I thought this was interesting because I kind of feel like it's always been a thing, but I don't know if anybody's ever actually come out and said it. And I know in my house growing up, it was very much so like this. Like my dad, he may not have said the exact words, but he made it pretty clear to me that like once you go, that's it. There's no coming back. You got to figure it out. And with my sisters, it was always a lot different. It was always a lot more lenient, which is why I believe that I left the house 10 years before either of them did. Like I was going at 17 because I'm happy he did it. Like I don't want to sound like I'm bitter about it because I'm not. I feel like it actually helped me in the long run. And sometimes I wonder if maybe that wasn't the advantage to my sisters that he thought it was, because I don't know if they have the same grit that I have because they were always allowed to come back home and to be coddled in a way that I wasn't.
Well, I mean, let's just call out the obvious. It's totally unfair.
Yeah,
I mean, like just stating the obvious, it's totally unfair. And I feel like if mom is also involved, because it's not just the dad's decision. If you have like a 2-parent home, right? So you got mom and dad weighing in. And this mom over here is going to be like, no, whatever we're offering our daughters, we're also going to be offering our son. Like, you know, I feel like you can still get grit and you can still be a somewhat safety net for your child. Like you don't want to enable them. You don't want them to be, you know, non-capable adults. But at the same time, you want to provide them a little bit of a safety net. And so whatever you're going to offer to your daughters, I feel like that should be extended to your sons as well.
It's totally unfair. But I also feel like the subconscious is that like life isn't totally fair in terms of safety for men versus women.
That is true.
Now, I'm coming from a household where like my brother was allowed to stay at home for a little bit. I was allowed to stay at home for a little bit. We were both expected to get out, but my parents weren't expecting us to like, you know, live on the streets or whatever. But I think the subconscious decision, especially with fathers, is that life is more dangerous for women out in the world. Women are more vulnerable to crimes. And, you know, I don't need to get into any of that, but you know what I'm trying to say. Whereas I feel like the subconscious thing is they see their sons and they're like, okay, well, you've just got to get out into the world and figure it out. Whereas I see my daughter as something that might need more protection than my son.
I mean, the stats are the stats when you look at crime rates versus men versus women, for sure. And I have like a prime example of that. Like I remember when I was living Cincinnati on my own, the relationship had imploded that I moved there for. I was still working there, miserable, moved to a very, very sketch part of town in order to, you know, afford rent in like this duplex area. I had a drug dealer on one floor. There was actually I felt very safe because there were always cops outside at the UDF across the street. But I remember like my dad coming and like dad had visited at one point and he's like, I worried about you every single day you were there and you have no idea how relieved I was when you finally moved out of there. And I don't think that would have been the same. He would have had the same conversation with my brother.
Here is listener Amanda. Good morning. You're part of the Bert Show. Hi.
Hey, I think this really involves, like, you have to take into account who your kids are. And my kids I have a freshman in high school and a senior in high school. My senior in high school, he's not allowed to come back after he leaves, except for very short periods of time. My freshman, if he comes back, he will help his dad in the yard. He will pay rent. He will do the dishes. Like, he's that kid. He's always welcome to come back.
If you can contribute, you can stay. Okay. I like that.
That's honest.
Thank you for calling. Appreciate it.
The Bert Show.